Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and watched her world die. Through the viewing screen, Earth glowed orange and red. Fires spread across the continents. Cities that had stood for thousands of years turned to ash in minutes. The oceans boiled. The sky filled with smoke so thick it blocked out the sun. She could not cry. Not anymore. She had cried when the warning came 48 hours ago. She had cried when her father, Fleet Commander James Chen, gave the order to abandon Earth. She had cried when the lottery decided which 15 million people would live and which 8 billion would die. Now she had no tears left. Only a cold, hard feeling in her chest that she knew would never go away. It had started so well. 3 years ago, humanity achieved faster-than-light travel. They explored nearby stars. They built colonies on Mars, Europa, and Titan. They reached out to the galaxy with messages of peace and hope. They wanted friends. They wanted to learn. They wanted to be part of something bigger, the galaxy answered. The galactic confluence came to Earth with 47 different alien species. At first, humanity celebrated. First contact had finally happened. But the celebration did not last long. The confluence studied humans for 6 months. They took samples. They watched videos. They read books and analyzed wars. Then they called a meeting of their council. Earth sent ambassadors filled with hope. Those ambassadors never came back. The confluence voted. 43 species voted yes. 4 voted no. The decision was simple and terrible. Humanity was too dangerous to exist. Humans were apex predators. They were aggressive. They fought wars over ideas, resources, and territory. In the confluence's long history, species like humanity always became threats. Better to remove the threat before it grew strong. The attack came without warning. Confluence warships appeared in orbit. They destroyed the Mars colony in hours. Europa and Titan fell the next day. Earth's defenses were nothing against technology thousands of years more advanced. Missiles vanished before reaching their targets. Fighter jets fell from the sky. The orbital platforms melted like ice in summer. But one species in the confluence had a conscience. The archivists were ancient, quiet beings who valued knowledge above all else. They believed the confluence was wrong. They could not stop the vote, but they could give humanity a chance. An archivist named Keeper Venthil sent a secret message to Admiral Elena Cross. The message said, "You have 48 hours. Save who you can." Elena Cross and James Chen worked faster than they ever had in their lives. They activated Project Exodus, a secret plan created for exactly this kind of disaster. 200 colony ships launched from hidden facilities around the solar system. They were meant to carry supplies and equipment to distant colonies. Now they carried people instead. 15 million humans chosen by lottery, because there was no fair way to choose who would live and who would die. 50 military vessels formed the Ghost Fleet to protect the colony ships. Sarah had been a shuttle pilot 3 days ago. Now she was captain of Earth's newest warship. Everything happened so fast. Too fast. The hardest part was the silence. They could not tell Earth what was happening. There was no time. If they sent a message, panic would destroy everything. People would riot. They would rush the launch facilities. The ships would never escape. So Elena Cross and James Chen said nothing. They saved 15 million and left 8 billion to die without knowing why. The fleet gathered beyond Pluto's orbit. The colony ships were ready. The military vessels formed a protective ring. In the command center of the Indomitable, Admiral Cross gave the final order. Her voice was steady, but Sarah could see tears on her face. Activate quantum fold drives. Maximum distance. Random vector into the void between galaxies. We run, we hide. We survive. One day we will come back. The drives engaged. Space twisted. The fleet jumped. Sarah felt the universe stretch and compress around her. The sensation lasted forever and no time at all. When it ended, they floated in absolute darkness. No stars, no planets, no light except what their ships produced. They had escaped into the void between galaxies where no one could follow. Behind them, Earth died. The confluence bombardment continued for 3 days. When it ended, the planet was silent. The oceans were acid. The atmosphere was poison. No human remained alive on the world where humanity was born. Sarah stood at her station and stared into the darkness outside. Somewhere far behind them, across an impossible distance, Earth's ashes cooled. Her mother had been on Earth, her 2 brothers, her friends, everyone she knew except her father, and the 15 million souls on these ships. Her father appeared beside her. Commander James Chen looked 10 years older than he had 2 days ago. He put a hand on her shoulder. "We did what we could," he said quietly. "It was not enough," Sarah replied. "No, it never is." He was quiet for a moment. "But we are alive. 15 million of us are alive. That means humanity is not dead. Not yet." Sarah turned to face him. "What do we do now?" James Chen looked out at the darkness. "We survive. We adapt, we grow, and we remember. We remember every person who died because the confluence decided we were too dangerous to live. We remember what they took from us." His voice grew harder. "And one day when we are strong enough, we go back." "For revenge?" Sarah asked. "For justice," her father said. "So this never happens to anyone else." Around them, the fleet began to organize. Engineers assessed damage from the emergency jump. Doctors treated people suffering from fold shock. Parents comforted children who did not understand why they could never go home. Life continued because it had to. In the weeks that followed, the fleet established a new society. They were refugees now. Survivors. The last humans in a universe that wanted them dead. They drifted in the darkness between galaxies, too far from any star to be found, too far to return home even if they wanted to. Admiral Cross spoke to all 15 million survivors. Her message was broadcast to every ship. She stood in her uniform straight and strong, and she told them the truth. Earth was gone. The confluence had committed genocide, but humanity would survive. They would adapt. They would become something new, something stronger. "We are the Ghost Fleet now," she said. "We are dead to the galaxy. Let them think they won. Let them believe humanity is extinct. But we will remember. Every child born on these ships will learn what happened. They will know what was taken from us, and one day, however long it takes, we will return." The survivors listened. Some cried. Some raged. Some sat in silence. But they all understood. This was not the end of humanity. This was the beginning of something else. Something the confluence had created by trying to destroy them. Sarah Chen stood on the bridge and made herself a promise. She would live. She would fight. And she would remember. Every face, every name, every person who died when Earth burned. They would not be forgotten. The confluence had made a terrible mistake. They had not killed humanity. They had given humanity a reason to become exactly what they feared most. In the darkness between galaxies, the Ghost Fleet began its long journey. Not a journey through space, but through time. They would need centuries, maybe more. But they had time now. All the time in the universe. And when they were ready, they would remind the galaxy of a simple truth. Humanity did not forgive. And humanity did not forget. Time passed differently in the void between galaxies. Years became decades. Decades became centuries. Centuries became millennia. The Ghost Fleet drifted through absolute darkness, so far from any star that the Milky Way itself was just a faint smear of light in the distance. The first generation of survivors died knowing they would never see Earth again. They raised children who had never walked on a planet. Those children raised children who knew Earth only from stories and videos. But the memory lived on, it had to. Forgetting would mean the confluence had truly won. Sarah Chen lived for 300 years before the aging finally took her. By then, she was no longer just a captain. She was a legend, one of the founders, one of the few who had actually seen Earth before it burned. She spent her last days teaching children about blue skies and green forests and oceans that stretched to the horizon. Many children thought she was making it up. A world covered in water? Trees that grew from the ground? It sounded impossible, but the fleet adapted. They had no choice. Survival demanded change. The 200 colony ships were never meant to house people for centuries. Engineers rebuilt them, expanded them, connected them. The fleet became a moving city in space, a nation without a planet. Technology advanced faster than anyone expected. With no distractions, no wars, no politics beyond survival, humanity focused completely on science. They perfected suspended animation. People could sleep for decades and wake up young. This meant one person could live for thousands of years by cycling between sleep and waking. Admiral Marcus Chen Cross was the 142nd generation of the Chen Cross bloodline. He was 28 years old, but he had been alive for 5,000 years. Most of that time, he slept in a suspension pod. He woke for 10 years, worked, made decisions, then slept again for a century. This was normal now. Time meant nothing when you could skip through it. The fleet grew. The 250 ships became 500, then 1,000, then 10,000. They built mobile shipyards that moved with the fleet. They mined asteroids they found drifting in the void. They recycled everything. Nothing was wasted. Every atom mattered. The population grew too, but slowly. 800 million people now lived across 50,000 ships. Cities floated in space. Gardens grew under artificial suns. Children played in parks built inside asteroids. It was a strange life, but it was life. Genetic engineering became necessary first, then normal. Humans adapted to space itself. Some became voidwalkers who could survive hard vacuum for hours. Their skin was thick. Their lungs could extract oxygen from almost nothing. Their blood could handle extreme cold. Others became quantum minds who could connect directly to computer systems and process information faster than any machine. Some became combat variants, stronger and faster, built for war, but they were all still human. That was the rule. The one law that could never be broken. Whatever changes they made, whatever adaptations they needed, they remained human. They remembered where they came from. They remembered what they lost. A religion emerged over the centuries. They called it the Remembering. Every human in the fleet spent 1 year of their life studying Earth. They learned the names of the continents and oceans. They memorized the capitals of nations that no longer existed. They watched videos of animals that died in the bombardment. They read books written by people who turned to ash. They prayed to no God but to memory itself. Forget nothing. Remember always. On the anniversary of Earth's death, the entire fleet observed silence. For 1 hour, every person stopped working, stopped talking, stopped everything. They thought about what was lost. 8 billion people who never got to escape, never got to see the stars, never got a chance to survive. 1 hour of silence for 8 billion dead. It was not enough. It would never be enough. Technology advanced in ways the old Earth could never have imagined. Humanity had time now. Centuries to experiment, millennia to test theories. They developed weapons the galaxy had never seen. Reality anchor bombs that could freeze space-time itself, trapping entire fleets in a single frozen moment. Stellar harvesters that could drain a star's energy in days. Singularity cannons that fired microscopic black holes. Phase ships that existed in multiple dimensions at once, impossible to hit, impossible to track. But with power came questions. Admiral Marcus Chen Cross asked them often. Are we still human? We do not look like the humans who fled Earth. We live in space. We sleep for centuries. We modify our genetics like changing clothes. Are we the same species that died on Earth? His daughter, Aria Chen Cross, gave him an answer one day. She was a combat variant, taller and stronger than baseline humans. Her eyes could see in darkness. Her reflexes were 5 times faster than normal. But she was human where it mattered. We are human because we remember, she said. We are human because we care about people we never met. We are human because we want justice for the dead. A machine could not feel this. An alien could not understand this. Only humans carry the dead with them this way. Marcus thought about this. She was right. They had changed in body, but not in heart. They were still the same species that built cities and told stories and loved their children. The Confluence had tried to kill humanity because they were dangerous. Instead, they created something far worse. Humanity with a purpose. After 200,000 years, the debate began. Should they return? The technology was ready. The fleet was strong. But many questioned whether revenge was worth it. The Confluence probably did not even remember humanity anymore. Earth's ashes had long since cooled. Everyone who committed the genocide was dead. Everyone who died in it was dead. What would returning accomplish? The debate lasted for decades. Thousands of people spoke. Some wanted revenge. Some wanted justice. Some wanted to prevent the Confluence from doing to others what they did to humanity. Some wanted to stay hidden and safe. Some were tired of running. Admiral Marcus Chen Cross listened to every argument. Then he called a vote. The entire fleet voted. 800 million people cast their decision. The result was clear. They would return, not for revenge, for prevention, to make sure the Confluence could never do this again, but they would be careful. They would send scouts first, learn what changed in the galaxy, understand their enemy. Then they would act. The decision made, The fleet began preparations. It took another 250,000 years to be truly ready. They built ships specifically designed to return to the galaxy, stealth vessels that could not be detected, jump-capable ships that could cross the void in days instead of years, weapons platforms that could destroy entire fleets. 450,000 years after fleeing Earth, the Ghost Fleet prepared to return. Most of the fleet would remain in the void, safe and hidden. A strike force of 10,000 ships would make the journey. That was enough. More than enough. Admiral Marcus stood on the bridge of the Indomitable III, named for the original flagship that fled Earth. He was 175,000 years old now, though he looked 30. He had been awake for this moment, for this decision. All ships report ready, his communications officer said. She was a quantum mind, connected to every ship in the strike force simultaneously. Marcus looked at the crew. They were ready. Humanity was ready. They had spent 450,000 years becoming ready. Begin the journey, he ordered. Take us home. The drives engaged. The strike force began moving toward the distant spiral of the Milky Way. They moved carefully, using stealth technology that made them invisible to sensors. They jumped through folded space covering light years in heartbeats. They were ghosts returning to haunt the living. As they traveled, Marcus thought about his ancestor Sarah Chen. She had been there when Earth died. She had made the choice to survive, to remember, to return one day. He was fulfilling her promise. 450,000 years later, humanity was coming back, but they were not the same humanity that fled. They were stronger, smarter, more dangerous. The confluence had been right to fear humanity's potential. They had just made one fatal mistake. They tried to kill humanity before that potential was realized. Instead, they gave humanity 450,000 years to achieve it. Now the galaxy would see what humanity had become. And the confluence would learn what happens when you try to genocide a species that refuses to die. The stealth probes entered the Milky Way galaxy first. They were small, no bigger than a human hand, but packed with sensors and quantum communication systems. They could scan entire star systems and send information back instantly across the void. Captain Arya Chen Cross watched the data stream in. She commanded the reconnaissance division from her ship, the Silent Observer. Around her, dozens of analysts processed the information. After 450,000 years, they finally had eyes on the galaxy again. What they found surprised them. The galaxy had changed, but not as much as they expected. The galactic confluence still existed. It had grown. 89 member species now, controlling 40% of the galaxy. They had become the dominant power, the peacekeepers, the judges of which species deserve to exist. Bring up the Sol system, Arya ordered. The main screen shifted. There it was, the yellow star where humanity was born. The probes moved closer, scanning the third planet from the sun. Earth. Arya's breath caught. The planet was still dead. The oceans were still toxic. The atmosphere was still poison. But the confluence had built something there. A monument. Massive structures covered what had once been continents, statues, museums, memorial halls. What is that? One of her officers asked. Arya read the translated inscriptions. Her jaw tightened. They made Earth a tourist attraction. They call it the Memorial of the Pruning, a lesson, a warning about the dangers of aggressive species. Silence filled the bridge. The analysts stopped working. Everyone stared at the screen. The confluence had turned humanity's grave into a museum. They brought children there to teach them why humanity had to die. How many others? Arya asked quietly. Her intelligence officer checked the data. 23. 23 other species have been pruned since humanity. The confluence evaluates every new spacefaring civilization. If they seem too aggressive, too dangerous, too unpredictable, they eliminate them. Arya stood. She needed to move, to think. 23 species. The confluence had committed genocide 23 more times. And they called it peacekeeping. They called it protection. They called it pruning, like cutting dead branches from a tree. What about the 4 species who voted against humanity's execution? Arya asked. The intelligence officer's face went dark. 3 are extinct. 2 were pruned for opposing confluence policies too strongly. 1 destroyed itself in a civil war. The 4th, the archivists, were scattered. They no longer have a homeworld. They live as nomads, outcasts. Find them, Arya ordered. The archivists saved us. We owe them. Find every archivist in the galaxy. It took 3 weeks, but they found an archivist settlement on the edge of Confluence space. Arya decided to go herself. She took a single stealth ship and 5 of her best operatives. They needed information, and the archivists had always valued knowledge above everything. The archivist station was old and worn. It drifted near a dead star, powered by ancient reactors. Arya's ship docked carefully. She wore a disguise, genetic modifications that made her look like a common space trader. She could not risk revealing herself yet. The archivists were tall, thin beings with multiple arms and eyes that glowed faintly. They moved slowly, as if every action required great thought. Arya approached one in what appeared to be a library. Thousands of data crystals lined the walls. "Excuse me," Arya said in the common trade language. "I am researching extinct species. I want to know about humanity." The archivist turned to her. Its eyes studied her carefully. Too carefully. Arya tensed. "You are human," the archivist said quietly. Arya's hand moved to her weapon, but the archivist raised its multiple arms in peace. "Do not fear. I am Elder Keeper Vental. My ancestor, Keeper Venthil, sent the warning to your fleet. We hoped you survived. We hoped you would return." Arya slowly relaxed. "You knew we would come back?" "We preserved samples," Vental said. "Human DNA, knowledge, culture. We hid it across the galaxy. We tried to resurrect your species, but we failed. Cloning was not enough. The consciousness did not transfer. But we hoped the original survived. Hoped you would return." "Why?" Arya asked. "Why help us? Your species paid the price for that choice." Vental's eyes dimmed with sadness. "Because the confluence is wrong. They claim to keep peace, but they commit genocide. They decide who deserves to exist. Someone must stop them. We cannot. We are too few, too weak. But you survived. You are not weak anymore." Arya sat with Vental for hours. The archivist shared everything. The confluence had grown comfortable in power. They believed themselves righteous. They had pruned 23 species with decreasing hesitation. It was routine now. A new species developed space travel. The confluence evaluated them, and if they seemed dangerous, they died. But there was resistance. Not open rebellion, that would be suicide, but quiet defiance. Species who hated the confluence but were too weak to fight. The Velkar were the strongest resistance group. They were warriors who had barely escaped pruning themselves. The confluence kept them alive only because they were useful as mercenaries. "The Velkar will help you," Vental said, "but you must be careful. The confluence has many eyes. If they discover humanity survived, they will come for you with everything they have." Arya nodded. "We will be careful, but we will not hide forever. The confluence created us when they tried to destroy us. Now they will face what they made." She returned to her ship with more information than she hoped for. The reconnaissance phase was complete. They knew the galaxy's layout. They knew the confluence's strength. They knew who might be allies. Now they needed to decide how to proceed. Admiral Marcus Chen Cross received Arya's report. He gathered his command staff. Thousands of officers joined the meeting via quantum link. The decision was too important for one person to make. "We have 2 choices," Marcus said. "We can announce ourselves, tell the galaxy that humanity survived, demand the confluence face justice, or we can strike silently, dismantle them piece by piece before they know what is happening." The debate lasted for days. Some wanted open confrontation. Others wanted stealth. Arya spoke last. "If we announce ourselves, the confluence will unite against us," she said. "They will see us as the threat they always feared. But if we stay hidden, we can do more than destroy them. We can free the species they oppress. We can show the galaxy that the confluence can be beaten. Then, when we are ready, we reveal ourselves." Marcus considered this. She was right. Revenge would be satisfying, but liberation would be justice. They could dismantle the confluence system by system, free the oppressed species, and only reveal themselves when the confluence was too weak to fight back. "We begin the silent war," Marcus decided. "We will be ghosts, phantoms. The confluence will not know who is attacking them or why. They will grow paranoid, weak, divided. And when they are broken, we will show them what humanity has become." The vote was called. The strike force agreed unanimously. Humanity would become what the confluence feared most, an invisible enemy that struck without warning and vanished without trace. They would be the nightmare in the dark, the ghost that haunted the confluence's dreams, And when the Confluence finally learned the truth, when they discovered that humanity had survived and returned, it would be too late. The war would already be over. The first Confluence patrol fleet disappeared on a Tuesday. 17 ships, 300 crew members gone without a trace. No distress signal. No wreckage. No evidence they ever existed except the empty space where they should have been. The Confluence investigated. They found nothing. Sensor logs showed no combat. No energy signatures. No anomalies. The fleet simply stopped existing. Equipment failure, they decided. Space was dangerous. These things happened. 3 weeks later, another fleet vanished. 20 ships this time. Then an outpost went dark. Then a mining colony. Then a military base. All in different sectors. All without explanation. No witnesses. No survivors. Just empty space where Confluence forces used to be. Area Chen Cross watched from the stealth ship as another target appeared on their sensors. A Confluence supply convoy. 6 ships carrying food and equipment to a frontier base. The convoy had no military escort. They did not expect trouble in controlled space. Activate phase shift, Arya ordered. Her ship shifted between dimensions. They existed in normal space and hyperspace simultaneously. Sensors could not detect them. Weapons could not hit them. They were ghosts made real. The human ships moved into position around the convoy. 6 supply ships, completely unaware they were surrounded. Arya felt no satisfaction in this. These were not warriors. Just workers doing their jobs. But the Confluence had to learn. Every ship they lost, every base that went dark, weakened them. Made them afraid. Deploy boarding teams, Arya said. Phase-capable soldiers materialized on the supply ships. They moved through walls like ghosts, secured the crews without violence, and planted beacons. The beacons would transport the ships to a holding area far from Confluence space. The crews would be released on neutral worlds with enough supplies to survive. No one would die today. That was important. Humanity did not become monsters, not even to fight monsters. Within minutes, the convoy vanished. Another disappearance for the Confluence to investigate and fail to explain. This was Phase 1. The vanishings. Make the Confluence paranoid. Make them afraid of their own space. Admiral Marcus called it psychological warfare. Break their confidence before breaking their fleets. After 6 months, the Confluence began to panic. 200 ships had disappeared. 15 bases had gone dark. The Council called emergency meetings. They increased patrols. They restricted travel. They deployed their best fleets to investigate. Those fleets disappeared too. The galaxy watched. Other species saw the Confluence struggling with an invisible enemy. Whispers spread. Maybe the Confluence was not as strong as they claimed. Maybe they could be beaten. Phase 2 began. The awakening. Humanity made contact with the resistance. The Velkar were first. Arya met their war chief, a scarred veteran named Krelthar, on a neutral station. "You are the ghosts," Krelthar said. It was not a question. "We are," Arya confirmed. "Good. The Confluence deserves fear. They pruned my people's neighbors. They keep us weak. They use us as soldiers but treat us as slaves." Krelthar leaned forward. "What do you want from us?" "Rise up," Arya said. "We will give you weapons, technology, support. When you rebel, the Confluence will have to send forces to stop you. Forces they cannot spare. Forces that will weaken them further." Krelthar smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "We have waited a long time for this opportunity. The Velkar will fight." Humanity supplied weapons to 34 oppressed species. Not just standard weapons, but technology centuries ahead of anything the Confluence had. Phase shields that made soldiers untouchable. Particle rifles that could punch through ship armor. Jump-capable fighters that could appear anywhere. The rebellions began simultaneously. 34 species declared independence on the same day. The Confluence tried to respond, but they were already stretched thin by the vanishings. They sent fleets to crush the rebellions. Those fleets ran into resistance equipped with weapons they could not match. The Confluence Council met in crisis. They argued for weeks. Some wanted to negotiate. Some wanted to commit more forces. Some wanted to use their ultimate weapon, the world burner bombs that had destroyed Earth. Before they could decide, Phase 3 began. The Revelation Admiral Marcus Chen Cross sent a message to every world in Confluence space. It broadcast on every frequency. It appeared on every screen. Every being in Confluence territory heard the same words at the same moment. People of the galaxy, I am Admiral Marcus Chen Cross of the Human Ghost Fleet. 450,000 years ago, the Galactic Confluence attempted to exterminate humanity. They killed 8 billion people. They burned our homeworld. They believed we were too dangerous to exist. The message continued. They were right. We were dangerous, but not in the way they thought. We were dangerous because we refused to die. We fled into the void between galaxies. We survived. We adapted. We grew strong, and now we have returned. The confluence has pruned 23 species since humanity. They claim to keep peace, but they commit genocide. They decide who deserves to live. They are not peacekeepers. They are tyrants, and we are here to end their tyranny. To the confluence, you attempted to kill us for what we might become. We became exactly what you feared. We are the ghosts who have haunted you for months. We are the reason your fleets disappear. We are the ones who armed the rebellion. You created us. Now face what you made. Surrender. Disband the confluence. Face justice for your crimes. Or we will dismantle you piece by piece until nothing remains but memory. You have 1 week to decide. The galaxy erupted in chaos. Some species celebrated. Others panicked. The Confluence Council refused to believe it. Humanity was extinct. This was a trick. A deception by the rebels. The Confluence Chancellor, a being called Prime Deliberator Karkin, addressed the council. This is impossible. We destroyed humanity. Their world burns still. This is propaganda. We will not be intimidated by ghosts. The Confluence assembled their grand fleet. 10,000 warships gathered at their capital world, the largest fleet ever created. They would crush these pretenders. Prove that humanity was dead. Show the galaxy that the Confluence could not be challenged. Admiral Marcus brought 500 ships to meet them. The Confluence laughed. 500 against 10,000? This would be a massacre, just not the one they expected. The Battle of Sirius began. The Confluence fleet advanced in perfect formation, confident in their numbers. The human fleet waited, small and seemingly helpless. Then the human ships phase shifted. They existed in multiple dimensions. Confluence weapons passed through them without effect. Human weapons did not miss. Reality anchor bombs froze entire sections of the Confluence fleet in temporal stasis. Singularity cannons tore through shields and armor like they were paper. Stellar harvesters drained the nearby star's energy and channeled it into devastating beam weapons. Phase ships appeared inside Confluence vessels, tearing them apart from within. The battle lasted 14 minutes. When it ended, 9th Item 47 Confluence ships were destroyed or disabled. 312 surrendered. Humanity lost 0 ships. 0 casualties. The galaxy watched in horror and awe. Humanity had not just returned. They had evolved into something beyond anyone's imagination. 450,000 years of focused development had created a civilization that could destroy the Confluence's greatest fleet in minutes. Admiral Marcus broadcast another message. This was mercy. We could have killed every Confluence soldier today. We chose not to. This is your last chance. Surrender. Face justice, or the next battle will not be so gentle. The Confluence surrendered 3 days later. They had no choice. Their greatest fleet was destroyed. Their member species were rebelling, and humanity had proven they could not be beaten in combat. The silent war was over. Now came the reckoning. Captain Arya Chen Cross stood on Earth for the first time in her life. The planet was still dead, but cleanup had begun. Massive atmospheric processors worked to remove the poison from the air. Bioengineers seeded the oceans with bacteria designed to break down toxins. It would take centuries, but Earth could be saved. Earth could live again. Around her, the monuments the Confluence had built still stood. The Museum of Humanity's Failure. The Memorial of the Pruning. The Gallery of Dangerous Species. Humanity had not destroyed them, not yet. They served a purpose now. Today, representatives from the 43 species who voted to exterminate humanity would stand trial. Not in some distant court. Not in a neutral location. Here, on Earth. Among the ashes of 8 billion dead. The trial chamber was built in what had once been New York City. The buildings were ruins, but the foundations remained strong. Human engineers constructed a massive hall, open to the sky, surrounded by the broken towers that had once scraped the clouds. Representatives came from across the galaxy, the 43 guilty species, the species they had pruned, the species they had oppressed, everyone who had suffered under Confluence rule, and humanity, sitting in judgment for the first time in 450,000 years. Admiral Marcus Chen Cross presided over the trial. He wore a simple uniform with no decorations. He needed no symbols of rank. Everyone knew who he was, what he represented. The 43 representatives stood in the center of the hall. Some looked defiant. Some looked scared. Some looked genuinely sorry. Former Prime Deliberator Karkin stood among them, no longer looking so confident. 450,000 years ago you voted to exterminate my species, Marcus said. His voice carried across the hall without amplification. You killed 8 billion people. You destroyed our world. You did this because you decided we were too dangerous to exist. He paused, looked at each representative. Since then you have pruned 23 other species. 23 civilizations destroyed because you feared what they might become. You call it peacekeeping. You call it protection. You call it necessary. We call it genocide. Karkin stepped forward. We did what was necessary. Aggressive species inevitably become threats. History proves this. We acted to prevent war, to save lives. You acted to maintain power, Arya said from her position beside her father. Every species you pruned was developing technology that might challenge yours. You eliminated competition and called it peacekeeping. And you? Karkin shot back. You returned with weapons that can destroy fleets in minutes. You proved we were right to fear humanity. You are exactly what we said you would become. Silence fell over the hall. Karkin was not entirely wrong. Humanity had become incredibly dangerous. They had weapons that could sterilize worlds, technology that could collapse stars. They could destroy the entire confluence in hours if they wanted to. Marcus stood. You are correct. We have the power to destroy you. We have had this power for thousands of years. We could have returned and burned every confluence world. We could have made you extinct. He walked down to stand among the representatives. But we did not. Even at the Battle of Sirius, when we destroyed your fleet, we did not kill unless we had to. We offered surrender. We offered mercy. Because that is the difference between you and us. You destroy species because of what they might become. We became powerful and chose not to use it for revenge. Power does not make a species dangerous, Arya added. What they choose to do with it does. You had power and chose genocide. We have power and choose justice. A representative from a pruned species spoke. Her people had been destroyed just 50 years ago. She was one of the few survivors. What justice can there be? Our worlds are dead. Our people are gone. Nothing you do can bring them back. Marcus turned to her. You are right. The dead cannot be brought back. But we can make sure this never happens again. We can build something better. He addressed the entire assembly. The galactic confluence is dissolved. It no longer exists. The 43 species who voted for genocide will be punished, but not with death, not with destruction. That would make us no better than you. Instead, you will help. You will dedicate your resources to restoring Earth. You will help terraform the 23 worlds you destroyed. You will build monuments to every species you pruned. You will teach your children what you did. You will remember. You will be forbidden from having offensive militaries for 100,000 years. You may defend yourselves, but you will never again have the power to threaten others. Humanity will enforce this. We will watch you. Karkin laughed bitterly. So you replace the confluence with yourselves. You become the tyrants. You become what you claim to hate. No, Marcus said firmly. We will not rule the galaxy. We will guard it. There is a difference. We are forming the Sentinel Accord. Any species who vows to never commit genocide, to never attack peaceful civilizations can join. We will share our technology. We will defend each other. But we will not dictate how you live or judge you for being different. Arya spoke to the assembled species. The confluence decided which species deserve to exist. The Sentinel Accord believes all species have that right. We protect. We do not prune. We guard. We do not judge. The trial continued for weeks. Each of the 43 species had to answer for their actions. Some showed genuine remorse. Some tried to justify what they had done. Some simply accepted their punishment without complaint. But justice was served. Not revenge. Not destruction. Justice. The guilty would spend generations making amends. The victims would be remembered. The galaxy would learn that genocide had consequences. When the trial ended, the restoration began. Ships from dozens of species came to Earth. They brought equipment, materials, and workers. The dead planet began to heal. Slowly, so slowly. But it healed. Arya stood in what had once been a forest. The land was bare now, poisoned and dead. But terraforming teams were preparing the soil. Bioengineers were designing plants that could survive here. In a few years, the first trees would be planted. In a few centuries, the forests would return. She held a small sealed container. Inside were seeds from the original forests of Earth. The Ghost Fleet had preserved them for 450,000 years. Samples of every plant species that grew on Earth before the bombardment. They had carried these seeds through the void, through the long evolution, through the silent war. Waiting for this moment, her father joined her. Together they knelt and prepared the ground. The soil was still toxic, but the bioengineers had created a treatment. The seeds would survive. They would grow. Not today, not tomorrow. But eventually Arya planted the first seed in the ground of restored Earth. She covered it carefully with treated soil. She whispered to the Earth, to the seed, to the memory of 8 billion dead. We came home. We remembered. We survived. Marcus put his hand on her shoulder. And we did not become monsters. That is what matters most. Around them, workers from a dozen species cleared rubble and prepared land, former enemies working together to heal what had been destroyed. It would take centuries, maybe millennia, but Earth would live again, and this time the galaxy would protect it. Years passed. The Sentinel Accord grew. 60 species joined in the first decade, then 100. Species that had been oppressed by the confluence found hope in the new alliance. Humanity shared their technology freely but carefully. Defensive systems, medical advances, clean energy, things that helped civilizations grow without giving them the power to destroy. The Ghost Fleet remained, not as conquerors, as guardians. They patrolled the galaxy watching for threats. When species developed space travel, humanity made contact, not with demands or judgments, but with welcome. Every new civilization was invited to join the Sentinel Accord. None were forced. None were pruned for being different. Earth continued to heal. The first tree broke through the soil 15 years after the trial. A simple oak tree, grown from a seed that had waited 450,000 years to take root. Arya was there to see it. She cried. Not from sadness, but from relief. Earth was not dead. Not anymore. In the decades that followed, more trees grew. Grass appeared. Small animals were introduced, cloned from preserved DNA. Birds flew again in Earth's sky. Fish swam in the healing oceans. Life returned to the world that had died. On the 100th anniversary of the trial, a Confluence historian published a journal. It was read across the galaxy. The historian, a being who had not been alive when humanity was pruned, wrote about what happened. About the Confluence's crimes. About humanity's response. About the choice to show mercy instead of revenge. The journal's final entry became famous throughout the galaxy. The Confluence feared humanity because they were dangerous. We were right to fear them, but wrong about why. Humanity was not dangerous because they were aggressive. They were dangerous because they refused to let genocide break them, because they survived 450,000 years in the darkness and came back not to destroy but to protect, because they had the power to burn the galaxy and chose not to use it. We thought danger came from aggression. We learned it comes from determination. We thought we could eliminate threats by destroying them early. We learned we only created bigger threats. We thought we were making the galaxy safe. We learned we were making it cruel. Humanity taught us the